Greetings, Ben Pearson, the Roadster Tracker, and I have just barely had a full month with the Tesla full self-driving. They finally gave me the free trial. I think it was version 12.3. As I'm recording this, there's a brand new version which Elon Musk claims will reduce the number of interventions by a full factor, one order of magnitude, factor of 10. So I don't know quite what I believe, but here's what my honest thoughts are. And you guys know me, I'm not a fanboy, but at the same time, I'm generally in favor of things, and I try to keep a kind of open mind when it comes to this kind of stuff. So let me start with this. I don't think I'm going to be buying it anytime soon. It's tempting. It's really tempting, but it's not good enough yet. And I don't really see it getting good enough in the short-term future. So my experience is it worked most of the time pretty decently. On the freeway, I would totally trust it. I not quite take a nap, but definitely not paying attention. There was one point in time where I was on a highway and it was fine, and it was relatively close to people, and I was wearing a tie this particular day. My wife was in the car and I started tying the tie and she was freaking out. But I felt totally safe in that specific circumstance. There was nobody around me. It was going on a straight highway. And yeah, there are definitely situations where it works well, but there are also situations that were problematic. Well, let me start with the worst thing. It ran over a squirrel. I may have ran over the squirrel, but without paying attention to it. But yeah, not a good thing. It's not something I have done probably in a long time, but I didn't intervene because I thought that the squirrel was going to jump off the road, so I may have hit it too. But I would have at least slowed down, and it just didn't pay any attention, which is fair. It's not a situation it's programmed to deal with. There was also another incident that I think is completely unrelated, but it's one of the closest I've come to an impact. I was driving along with, full self-driving, not really paying that much attention. There was a car that was turning in and almost sideswiped me. It kind of freaked me out, but I was fine, and I don't think that there's much I would have done differently driving in that situation. It's just something that happened to happen while I was doing the FSD trial. So the good is freeways, obviously. Well-marked roads. Once you get on the road, it's pretty good, and it is pretty good at knowing when to turn. There was a couple of times where, I was turning onto a road and it was able to correctly pick up that things were clear because it could look in all directions at the same time, where I had to sit there and crane this way to make sure everything was clear. So in that sense, it works really nicely. Some of the biggest problem is navigation stuff. One of the really weird things that it does is, let's say that you have a gas station that's on a corner near a freeway exit. There's one of these situations that's near my house, and the gas station has its own entrance into it, and then there's immediately the turn on to get to the freeway right after them. So it'll turn on its blinker to try to merge in before it hits the gas station. It will start to pull into that lane, and then it will back out, and then it will decide to go in. And there was one of these incidents actually that somebody was very, very confused. They thought I was trying to turn into the place that they were, and they started to go out. Could have caused an accident, and I felt really horrible, but I was trying to figure out what it was capable of. I was not hesitating at all to stop if I felt something unsafe, but this was when I was still getting used to it, and it took me a while to kind of trust it a little bit more. There's another instance where I have to merge like 4 different lanes in about half a mile to get to work. Really, really annoying to do, and it will do it most of the time, except it usually doesn't get into the final right-hand turn lane that is really needed. Another thing that I found that was really annoying is oftentimes when you're turning onto a bigger road, it will kind of drive right along a line. So, you know, like it'll drive in the shoulder of the road, which is very annoying and bizarre. Not a great thing, but most of the time, you know, it deals with traffic lights very well. It deals with stop signs very well. The four-way stop it does is quite logical. I did have to tap the gas a number of times to help smooth it over a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. Some of the speed limits in town that it has in its computer are wrong, and it's really quite frustrating, honestly. There's a spot where I go that the speed limit's 50 miles an hour, and then it eventually goes up to 65 miles an hour, but somewhere between the 50 and the 65, the internal data bank says that it's 25 miles an hour, and then it usually doesn't see the 65 mile an hour sign because that sign is off in a right-hand exit only lane, and I'm not trying to do that, so I'm usually far over to the left to allow people to merge, and it doesn't pick up that speed limit sign, which is really, really annoying because it's trying to somewhat follow the speed limit. It does have a somewhat flexible mode, but it's just not picking that up, and it's really, really frustrating, which is, you know, usually when I was driving through that section, I just have to keep my foot on the gas, and I was kind of manually helping it along a little bit. Definitely some times where I'm trying to change lanes, or it's trying to change lanes and it just doesn't, or sometimes it'll go halfway in the lane or something like that. Overall, it's pretty good. I definitely wouldn't go fall asleep in it. Another big annoyance is you can't specify exactly where you want to park. Like, for instance, my work, I have one specific part of the parking lot that I always want to park, and if I could just say, hey, park at whichever parking spot is nearest to here, fantastic, it would work great. Except for the fact that there's a speed bump in the parking lot and it doesn't seem to like that. But it always tried to go to a different spot entirely. I guess it would work for a robotaxi type service, but it isn't practical for me driving from someplace. So maybe that's what they're trying for, is a robotaxi model as opposed to the take you everywhere model. So I would always have to disengage before I got to my destination, which is quite frankly annoying, especially where it's something where I go every time, and if I could just say park here, so much better. So much better. I'm gonna keep an eye on this. If the price threatens to go up, then maybe I'll consider it, but $8,000 is still a good chunk of change, and while thanks to the support of everybody who has visited Where's Roadster, I could afford it if I needed to, it's still a good chunk of change, and I'm not willing to part over right now. So that's my honest opinion, and hopefully this will give you a better sense. Honestly, it's very impressive technology that with just cameras for roads that there's not a ton of Teslas in the town where I live. There's a few of them. It's non-zero, but it's not one that, like California, that has tons of them that they're mapping out everything. This is really pretty virgin territory. There's some of the roads that I went on that I'd be willing to bet I'm the first person to ever try to drive on that particular road with the full self-driving. And the fact I was able to do it is pretty cool. But it's not something that I'm willing to go completely in right now. Yeah, so hopefully that helps you guys to decide. Keep an eye on it though. It's getting close. And I know that every time Elon says, oh yeah, we're gonna get the next version is gonna work perfectly, it never does. But this is the real sense of what it's like. You still have to pay careful attention. The real summary is it feels like somebody who just passed their driver's test and doesn't know the area that they're driving in. That's the best summary of what it feels like to be in the car while this is driving. Now, my wife, who freaks out totally about this type of stuff, I had it on while she was in the car and she didn't even notice it at first. So that's a good sign that it didn't freak her out there. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this helps. Let me know whatever questions, comments you guys have. I appreciate everything you do. Until next time, keep on trekking. Take care. We will see you then. Bye bye.